Hello, Pat in the cockpit, May 7th, early in the morning. I'm in the cockpit doing some maintenance work today. We're doing some troubleshooting on our pedestal. We've installed a new um, TechWorks network I/O board. Took out the old TechWorks board that was USB. That was USBs in general. I don't like. Not because they don't work in TechWorks, it's because USB itself, when they disconnect, they tend to crash everything. Anyway, this is the TechWorks USB I/O board. It's in the pedestal. It's got 64 inputs in groups of 8 and outputs for LEDs. We got 16 groups of 8 for 128 output channels that run LEDs. Um, Board works great. It's a USB I don't like. So we're changing that out to a network device. TechWorks has provided us a couple of I/O boards. One we've already installed in the MIP and we've been using since November in the main instrument panel that has been working really good. Haven't had a single problem with it. Now we're changing out the pedestal one, and we've done that in the last couple of days. Um, but we've run into a problem where our cargo fire panel is not working correctly, and we're going to troubleshoot that today. So to start with, our I/O board, which is mounted down there, we built a little test jig here. It's a rotary switch. This one's got 10 position. I really only need 8, so 2 of them aren't used. And a connector that goes onto the I/O board just pushes on to the inputs. And we can rotate this switch, and in the virtual plane and in the scripts using the diagnostic tool, we can actually see things change, and that validates that the scripts are working correctly, and/or we have good connection between the I/O board and the plane, and that's working fine. In lieu of this little rig I made, um, you can take a connector from a adjacent plug and put it on to the one that you suspect of having issues, and test your software or your hardware doing that. But this is much easier. You can only use this for inputs. For outputs, you'd have to make a different rig with lights and turn them on in software. So anyway, so we're going to get down in here, and I've got 2 cameras running. This one that you can see me on, that I'm drinking coffee at. And I got this little one down here, this little webcam, so you can see down inside the pedestal. To start with, we're going to remove the radios, and we've already previously removed them. These radios, also made by TechWorks for Flightdeck Solutions, are a fairly new set. I've had them about a year. They're all network based. All my radios, I really like them. I've disconnected the IBLs, the integrated backlighting, which is the 5 volts for the lighting. And I'm going to remove it. Here's the weather control panel. Remove the wiring off the back of that one. This is my transponder. And we're taking these out so we can get to the cargo panel. And the last one's the nav one we're going to take out. And it's still got the IBL. You can see the backlighting. I'm going to remove the IBL connector. The 5 volts, it just pulls off. It's just plus or minus 5 volts. And here's the network connector, and pull it off. And I don't know why this one's so... Oh, I know why. The little connector over the top. Yeah, this little um, cover over the button was underneath it for the network. So we'll shove that down in there. And there's the nav radio. We've got to take these out because when we rebuilt this pedestal with a new card, we presumed that everything was going to work fine, and we tie wrapped everything up. Dope, that wasn't the case. So let's go ahead and reach down in here with our cutters and cut some tie wraps loose. I have my little box down here of all my parts and tools. And the connectors we're going to take off today, we're going to take, let's see, this one right here. And it comes around here. This one comes off. Cut a couple tie wraps here. Here's the other one. So we have two. The purple ones are input switches from all these button switches on the cargo fire panel. There's only one connector. It's number 6. It's so each one has 8, so it goes 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, 25 through 32, 33 through 40, 41 through 48, 49 through 56, 57 through 64. 8 on each one, and a ground. The dark color is the ground, so we basically apply ground to each switch position to close things. So this is the number 6 connector, and it's numbers 41 through 48 in the scripts. And then we have the connector for the LEDs, and it's number 4, and it's right here. I'm going to pull it off, and I got it off. They're on there pretty stiff. So this is the harness we're dealing with today. Oops, it looks like there's number 5 also. It's got 2 wires on it. I'm going to pull it off. So here's the harness. I'm going to pull it around here. I've already put my little jig on it, like I said earlier, with the rotary switch, and tested my switches in software, and everything is working. So now we're going to test why this isn't, figure out why this isn't working, the hardware. But I got to physically get it out, so I'm unwinding this harness. Pull it back through here carefully. Just cut that tie wrap right there, big guy. And if you don't own a pair, get a pair of really nice trimmers. Not only do they flush cut tie wrap so you don't end up bleeding when you run your hand across a jagged tie wrap, they're easy to get into wires. We'll pull that tie wrap out. And let's see, we're trying to pull this back around this way, just like this. Okay, there's the harness we want. We'll cut this neon colored one out, like that. Okay, come along here and get this neon colored one right there. We make them neon so when we hook bundles together, we know which sets of cables go with which set. Cut this big one out here. Could use a little more lighting down in here, but this is good for now. Pull this tie wrap out. Okay, got that. And this is actually, that was pretty easy. I made it into a bigger deal. Now we can yank this harness, this module out. So we remove the ease back on the quarter turn DUS fasteners, the same type they use in real planes. And we're just going to lift this module out carefully. You gotta be real careful with these modules. They're you can crack them and you'll be hating life. There we go. And we're going to take the IBL off the back. Again, that's too tight. We need to loosen that to IBL lighting up. Ugh. That's off. And I think we should be able to pull this module out. And let's look for anything obvious. This is our module, and here's the harness that goes to the IL board. And you can see the back of it. We have this connector for this light, and this connector for this switch, and this connector for this switch, and that connector for that switch. And this is for a button, and that's on there. And these are these push buttons. They're all on there. And push that down and that down and that. I'm recording. I'm recording. Yeah, I didn't want other people walking in while recording. Oh, I see something that's not connected here. What is this? That one's connected. Where's that one go? Maybe it's not even supposed to be there. OO is there. Okay, ZZ 1313 XXYY 144. Oh, it doesn't have a number on. Okay, so everything's connected up. Let me see if there's any pulled wires. Everything looks good here. Ah, what is this? This is the one that might be the problem. Nope, I'm guessing. Okay, bear with me 1 second. Okay, we restarted the stream. Now we've pulled this module out and we looked at all the wiring. Everything looks okay. I don't see anything that's broken. So what we're going to do now is test. We could have done this without pulling it out, but we wanted to look at the wiring. So there's 3 connectors here. 2 of them are for LEDs, which are all working because I did the lights test in X-Plane, ZeboMod, and turned the lights test on, and all the lights on here came on just fine. So all these LED wires and connectors are working. All the lights on the module came on. So there's only one connector for switches. And the switches are in order, numbers 41 through 48. I can look in the scripts, and there's a push button test. It's 41, 42, 43 is the aft arm. Discharge is a push button. Then I got A and B detector and aft A and B detector. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions for switches on this module. And I have 8 wires and the grounds, and there's 2 grounds hooked together. They're the dark color. So what I'm going to do is set this in my lap, the module, and take my ohm meter and put it on beeper. And you can hear it when there's continuity. And I'll put the negative lead in the end of the connector and go to number 1, which is 41, right there, and push the button. And it should hear a beep. That's good. And go to the second one, which is the forward arm. That's good. And then the next one is the aft arm. That's good. And the next one, that's 41, 42, 43, should be 44 on the discharge. That's good. Then the detector left on A, the forward detector, and then B should be the next one. That's good. Put it back to normal. And finally, the aft normal to the A position is good. And then we'll go to the B position. And that's good. So all the switches wire out to the connector. And I tested this before and I verified it worked. And didn't work in the plane. So now I'm in a quandary to figure out why. But now that I got the unit out, I feel a little more confident I can hook it all back up and give it a try again. So let's try that. So what I'm going to do is, I don't even care about the LED lights. I'm just going to hook the switches up. So I'm going to reach down here, and actually we're going to test it with software with the test switch first. So let's just set this aside. And validate it with our test switch. I'm going to hook up our test switch right here. Hook it up to number 6. Bear with me. Okay, that's on there. And there's the test switch. Okay. Bear with me. I'm going to pause this while I get it all set up. Okay, we've changed our camera view. Right now you're looking at my server screen, and I've started X-plane, and we can look at its plane. Maybe. Let's see. Yeah, there's the back of the plane. I don't know where I am at. Indianapolis, maybe. Anyway, let me go back inside of the plane so you can't hear it. And what I'm going to do is start the plugin in X-plane Zero mod called FDS to XP Network Diagnostic Tool. And we're going to look at anything I change will come up on this screen here. So I hooked my little test jig up back to input number 6, and we're going to rotate the switch one turn to the right. And I hear the test, that's the test position in the script. And if I look at the script right here, here's the script. 41 is the push button cargo test 41. And you can see right there, if you can read that, it says OE06.2. That's usage number 2, which is the OE06 board, which is the I/O board from TechWorks, usage number 2. Not to be confused with 0 and 1 in the device ID in the script, but in the coding for the network for TechWorks is 1 and 2. And it's switch number 41 is on. I'm going to rotate my little switch that's hooked to my I/O board to the second position. And it should give me a off on for number 41 went off, number 42 went on. And that is push button forward arm. Now remember, we tested these all with the actual module with our ohm meter, and they all work. Now I'm testing the circuitry and the script with my rotary switch. Test switch. Here's the second position. That should be 43. 42 off, 43 on. That is forward arm. That's working. And the next position, and it toggles, and the next position, it toggles, and the next position, it toggles, and the next position, it toggles, next position, it toggles, next position, it toggles. I think 48 is the last one. That's number 48. And if I go to the next two positions, there's nothing on those wires, and it should go back to test. Right there. And I'll go left. And I'm going backwards now. So everything's working with the rotary switch. Okay, now we're going to temporarily pause this recording while I change things around. Hold on. Okay. So to summarize, so far we've removed all the modules that were in the way. We cut the tie wraps away. We pulled out the fire detection, cargo fire detection module, and on the switches that weren't working originally, we tested the switches with the ohm meter, and they were all proper for all 8 positions. Then we took our test connector right here and put it on the I/O board and rotated through and saw in X-plane that all the values were changing in the diagnostic tool. Next, we're going to take the test switch off and hook the cargo fire back up, and it should work, but it didn't previously. And this is where I'm a little confused. So we're going to try that again. So bear with me one second. Okay. We've disconnected our little test switch from position 6 on the I/O board and reconnected the cargo module. And so we don't have the lights hooked up. We didn't hook the LEDs up, just the switch. Here's the LEDs. Haven't hooked those up. And so if I push the test button, we should hear it in the plane. We should hear it go click. And if I hold it, I should hear the alarm, and I do. So let's go back to the Flightdeck Solutions Diagnostic, and bear with me so I can, bear with me one second. I'm just going to go over here and go to desktop and share, oh no, the Brio here. Share that, Minimize that. And let's see if we can get this camera in the full screen here. Hold on just a second. Screen is not my forte here. Here we go. Let's try that. Okay, now if I push, let me clear all these. I still have the Flightdeck Solutions diagnostic tool running, plug-in. I push the test button. You can see it toggles correctly. 41. And here's 42 and 43, 44, 45. And it's working the way it's supposed to. If I hold the test button down, you should hear the test start. So it's working, but it didn't before. Now I'm even more confused. But what haven't I hooked up? I haven't hooked up my LEDs. The problem with hooking up LEDs when it's live is it shouldn't be a problem hooking up LEDs when it's live. So I'm going to try hooking up the LEDs. I'm going to hook up number 5 first, which is only the discharge light. Before I do that, I'm going to run the test program. So I mean the test light program. If I run the, let me go back to my camera here. Hold on just a second. And go back to my camera and turn this one off. And let's minimize this. Okay, put that up there. There we go. So if I run the test program, the light test program, all the lights should come on. And you can see they all come on in the plane. In the overhead, the MIP, everything starts blinking. I haven't hooked the LEDs up for the cargo fire, but I'm going to now. But first I'll turn the test light off, hook up only number 5, which is the discharge light. Don't think that was a good thing to do. Good test. And so I hooked up number 5, which is, I'm sorry, the detector fault light isn't just number 5. It's only got one wire on it. If I put the test light on, the light did come on. Very good. Turn the test light off and push the test button, and I can hear it. So that's all working. Now let me hook up the other set of lights. I'm very confused. Maybe we had a loose connector. Let me hook up the other set of LEDs. Number 4 now, which has the majority of the LEDs. And hook it up. Okay, it's hooked up. Okay, push the test light. And as a matter of fact, the 2 test forward and aft lights come on. So when you push the button, all the lights should come on, and they do. You can see I got a red one here, a red one here. And we hit the discharge once, so the discharge light stays on. That was and the only way to fix that is to put it into maintenance. Actually, I'm gonna go into X-Plane and go to fix all failures. Let's fix all failures. I can't see it. It's at the bottom of the screen. I've lost my mouse. Help. Here we go. I'm looking on my server screen. Fix all failures, fix all systems. Done. Apply changes. Test light. And let's do the light test here. Everything comes on. So, I don't know. It's all working now. I'm presuming we had a loose connector. We're going to put it all back together now and watch it fail, because that's just the way things work in life. Everything's working. Very confused. Okay, we're gonna minimize this. So I don't know what I did to fix it. After I took it out, it started working, and I pushed down on a connector. So I'm presuming when I put it all in, there was a connector that had either oxidation on a tin pin, because we do get oxidation being here at the beach on pins, and it rocked a little bit and broke the oxidation loose. That's a real common issue with tin-plated pins as opposed to gold-plated pins. So we're going to put it all back together now. So I guess the first thing I should really do is power down X-Plane. Let me close the script. I'm looking over my left shoulder so I can close things down. Let me close X-Plane down. Close down the diagnostic tool. And for USB purposes, there's another diagnostic tool for USB, or you can use the which works just like the network diagnostic tool, but there's even a better tool called TAPI, Interface TAPI by TechWorks, that does the exact same thing without having to fire up X-Plane. Highly recommend it. So I guess the first thing I'm going to do is move my camera around. We're going to remount this after we cut some tie wraps. Things are too tight in here, so we got to loosen up some tie wraps and put it all back together. Oops. Okay, I'm going to need the screwdriver. I'm going to have to move this module now to get to the tie wraps to loosen up the wiring. And we've got a box of tie wraps here. We're just going to lift this one out. There we go. And bring it down here just a little bit. This IBL is too tight. I need to. Okay, I'm going to move my camera around so where it was. Bear with me 1 second. And start this camera again and bring it up here so we can see it. And readjust it. How's that look? It's not too bad. We'll just leave it like that. Okay, I need my cutters, need my tie wraps. I'm gonna start by cutting this tie wrap down in here. I need to stretch this a little bit. This one needs to be a little longer. And that should work just like that. Okay, and that's labeled cargo. And then the network cable's a little too tight. Let's cut the network cable. That's number 4. Okay, that's good. And so the cargo fire doesn't have a network cable, but this number 4 network cable, which is I count my networks. COM1 is 1, COM2 is number 2, NAV1 is number 3, then I got transponder is 4, and NAV2 is 5, and then ADF is 6 on my network cables. So that's long enough now. And I got a big tie wrap just kind of loosely holding it there. That's enough to get that. And that's long enough. That's good. Now this one here was a little on the, actually this one's okay. So we're all set there. We'll just put that back there. And this one's a little on the tight side. And that whole bundle should come on the other side here. So I need to cut this one. This bundle's in the, it needs to hang down a little lower. It's too tight. Pull this one out. And where's my big box of tie wraps? They're back here. Can't have enough tie wraps. I must have 5,000 of them. So we're going to tie wrap this baby a little lower down. Get it out of the way. He was running into the network cable. You have two types of cables, too long and too short. Okay, that's good there. And again, flush cutters are very important for cutting tie wraps. It doesn't leave a jagged edge. When you put your hand in somewhere and it's got tie wraps that aren't cut flush, you'll bring blood out on your arm. So get a good pair of Klein flush cutters. Okay, that's good. Here's the IBL for this one. It's long enough. It's good enough. Okay, we're all set there. That's good. We can live with that. The other thing we wanted to do while we were here, and this is sort of like a problem with the network I/O board, is if you notice the old network I/O board has hold on. The old network I/O board has 4 corner standoffs, which align with the new one. But the ones in the middle, there's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4 are offset on the new ones. They're over slightly because these connectors get in the way, the new connectors. So the holes that were in my pedestal don't line up. They're slightly off. So I'm just using the standoffs. So pushing on them is okay, but pulling on them, there's no tension on the standoff. So I really need to mark those and drill holes. That's if I'm going to take connectors on and off a lot, which I don't plan on doing because this is going to all be fixed. I keep telling myself. The only way to do this is to unhook everything, take the board out, make a paper copy of it, put it on the other side, mark it, and drill holes. That looks like an all-day proposition, which we're not going to do today. So what I'm going to do here is pause the recording for just a second while I finish up a couple of tie wraps, and we'll put it all back together and we'll test it. So I'm going to pause it for just a second. Okay, so much for pausing it. Let's just start putting it back together. Cargo fire module. That's going to be, we need to get that in there first. So we're going to, since it's already hooked up, we'll just go underneath this, right through here, and go through here, and bring the wiring back with us. And this is going to go down along the side here. And we'll tie wrap it in right there after we install it. So we're going to jiggle all these connectors again. Make sure the oxidation is broke loose. And we'll test it before we close it all up, because I know what's going to happen. We're going to get it all back in here and it ain't going to work. And I'm going to be throwing the sim out the window. Okay, so this is going to go right here, fire control module, just like that. And did I shut down X-Plane? I did. Let's fire it back up. And while that's firing back up, I'm going to tie wrap this all up. Let enough slack go down in here so I can remove it if I have to. Okay. And let's fire up X-Plane and start flight. Tie wrap right in here. It doesn't need to be that tight. Okay, X-Plane is running, and hear the trim working, and let's fire up some power in the plane here. Okay, got power. Over to my diagnostic tool. Push the buttons, and they work. Those work, and the light test works, so it's all working. That's a good thing. I am sure that the fix was oxidation on those tin pins had caused the problem, or a loose connection. Okay, this is all going down in here. We can start putting radios back in just a second. What a mess. This is the printer. Since I built it, I know where all these wires go, and I label everything with a label make all my wires, so I know where they go.
Guys, the Leo's on board.
That's all good. Bring that around here. This is all our extra wiring. Oh, I forgot to hook this wiring up. Darn it. More tie wraps. Cut that one. And cut that one. Let's try this again. Forgot to hook the LED cable up. My doggy's going nuts for some reason. Still working. These up. This big one. That one. A couple tie wraps down in here. Hey, everything else is looking pretty good down there. I think I can live with everything else the way it is. Let's hook some more modules up. So to hook up modules up, I'm going to shut down the X-Plane. Last test. Good. And coffee break. Okay. New modules. Cargo's in. COM2 is in. Network's hooked up. And now we're going to do, let's see, this is nav number 2. And that's number cable 5. And here's the IBLs for it, integrated backlighting. Let's hook those up first. That's good. That's good. Hook up the network cable like that. Set it right there. Next one is the transponder. I'll tell you, Flightdeck Solutions TechWorks makes some gorgeous modules. Here's the network cable for it in the IBL. It only gets one IBL and a network cable. And that sets right there. Perfect. Then the weather control panel, which doesn't have wiring because it's not active in Zibo mod. So I just put an IBL backlighting on it. And there should be one in here that says weather. There it is. Everything's labeled. Maybe someday Zibo mod will have the weather control panel modded. I've got the wiring, I just haven't hooked up to the I/O board because it doesn't serve any purpose. It used to in Sim Avionics, but when I went to X-Plane Zibo mod, we lost that functionality. Well, that's life. Okay, that's in there. Next one is ADF. So that's the last one. It gets 2 IBLs, and they're the hardest ones to put on. That went on easy. Usually it's much more difficult. And that goes right there. We get IBLs, and we get a network cable that comes right up through here. That hooks to there. And we'll set that right in there. Okay, everything's hooked back up. Oh, we need the printer. Where's our printer? Here it is. We have a nice little printer that's a USB printer that prints out our data, our flight performance information. And it's just a normal generic printer in Windows. And we'll hook up the power to it. Right there. It's keyed. So can't go stupid. And it should get a USB. Right there. A little micro USB. Yeah, and you hear that ding? That's the good sound. It can be a bad sound too. That's in there. And we also have a Hobbs meter, which I'm going to run through a relay card, which is hooked through a relay card that I'm going to set the coding so when the idle control arms are up, the Hobbs meter starts reading, which is an hour meter. It's a real one. Comes off of 12 volts, and we're going to hook it up. That goes there. That 12 volts goes there through the relay card that's up in the MIP. And that goes there, and that sits right there. So all the devices are back in. This is where we fire up X-Plane and test it for the final time. In the meantime, I'm going to get all the blank panels. Put the blank panels in. That black panel goes there. And this one goes here. We're missing an ACP module here. We'd like to get a new one, but I'd like to have a little more functionality in our ACP panel. It's not very good right now. Okay, that's another project. It goes there. Fire up X-plane. And I'm going to start tightening down radios with the DUS fasteners. Never took that one out. We never took that one out. We never took that one out. So you always do DUS fasteners cross. And they're quarter turn, they're spring loaded, and you can pop the DUS out, accidentally break it if you're not careful. It takes a lot of force, but they're pressed into the board, and that's where they pop out. DUS has been around. He was actually, I think he was a Polish guy that developed the fastener in the 20s, was it? You can look it up. DZUS, Mr. DUS. Pretty technical, but this is the ones they use in the real planes, and they've worked for years. So we're tightening everything up. And, oh, I got to tell the plane where to go. Here we go, start flight. Okay, well, that's happening. Tightening everything down. See, this one's tight. Got to be real careful. It's just, I'm going to loosen the others. You know when it's too tight, it just doesn't want to turn. You got to work it in. There we go. Didn't like to feel that one. That was too tight. If they're too tight, it'll just pop loose from the radio. Okay, test. Look at that. Works fine now. So we're going to test some other stuff. Why didn't those? Oh, radios didn't come alive because they don't have power in the plane. Dummy. There we go. Power in the plane. Okay, these other ones did not come alive. I don't like that. This is where we have to punt. Oh, reset the I/O board down in here, I think. Let me shut down the X-plane, try it again. So these radios didn't come on. That's got nothing to do with what we were working on, but everything to do with how the radios come alive on the US, the network card for the radios. That's a different card, and sometimes you got to reset it. Of course, I've tightened everything up, and I can't get it out now. Got to reach through and pop it up. Okay, so all I'm going to do is reach down here and power down that card. Let's see. Let's go to our light. And all I'm going to do is reach down in here and pull this power and put it back on and restart X-plane. So the network card for Flightdeck Solutions for the network radios is a little 6-port card that the network hooks into that uses LAN cables. It's not LAN, or what's the word I'm trying to say? It's not, the protocol isn't what a router would use. They use their own, they use MAC addresses. But it's 8-port down in here, hooks up to the radios. And let's start it again. And that cord's right down in there. me just a second. And all the radios came alive. And let's see if they turn. Look at that. Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, so we're done with this light. Turn that off. Put this panel back. Let's make sure that works. Yes. And everything's working. Okay. Okay, that seems to all be working. Go back to tightening things down. I'm sure I mentioned it before, but do a cross tighten like you would on your tires on your car. That way things don't pop up on the far corner. A lot of people's pedestals have screw terminals. Does is an option. My apt overhead is screw terminals. I wish I would have gotten does on that because you can't move modules around. But obviously it costs more. So my little mouse pad goes over on this side. Almost done here. Only module we'd like to do here in the pedestal, besides what we have, is another ACP. Okay, they're all tightened down. That's all good. So I'm going to call this little game a success. Let's talk about what we've done and what our plans are. And this last iteration of repairs, we went up front in the nose of the plane and we added a new power supply. Our power supplies are regular 850 watt computer power supplies. We tap off, we use the 12 volt and the 5 volt. Usually in your computer power supply, your 12 volts is the most powerful for the motherboard and the CPU, but in the sim, the 5 volts uses more power for the integrated backlighting. The 12 volts runs all the odds and ends of printers, the I/O boards, some of the displays. Not nearly as much current. My problem was with everything running, the 5 volt was getting pulled down to it was pulling about 25 amps, and that's the limit of the power supply. So I was getting little brownouts. So what I did is I put another power supply in, use the cabling that comes out of a computer power supply, cut off all the wires except for the 5 and 12 volt, and bundled them together and mounted a power supply up on in the back in the nose, and it runs just the overhead for 5 and 12 volts. The wiring comes up through the column, and then the original power supply just runs the main instrument panel, the MIP, and the pedestal. So now I've distributed the loads and don't seem to have any problems. Finished that a couple days ago. I also, when I removed the pedestal to put in the new I/O card and to clean up the wiring, I took the throttle quadrant made by Flight Sim Center in Italy, which I've had for a year or so, which I love. It's motorized. It actually is a fabulous. It's a fabulous device. Works really well. But the problem I had is the dust covers were rubber, and the soft rubber was getting torn by a little edge here on this metal. This is all metal, and it was the rubber was flaking down inside, and it was black rubber powder all inside the throttle, and lots of gears and motors and cogs and belts. Didn't like it. So taking it apart is like taking a watch apart. If you don't know what you're doing, have a spare one so you can throw the one you took apart away or keep it for spares, which I don't have a spare. Anyway, that was fun taking it apart. That'll be a different video. And I made some vinyl, some new vinyl. They sent me the rubber from Italy, to replace it with, but I didn't want to put the new rubber in to have it do exactly what the old rubber did. So I tried some vinyl, naugahyde, and I found out it wouldn't work. It works for here and on the inside, but on the outside it's just too tight. And so I find out what my buddy Picatanga used some black leather, cattle leather, thin, and it seemed to work fine. What I'm going to do is that sharp edge there, I'm going to deal with that sharp edge, and that'll be another video. So we got the throttle quadrant back in, it's working. Got the pedestal in, did a test flight yesterday, everything worked good. We're up to the latest X-Plane 12.05 released one, and on the Zevo mod we're on, what are we on, 357? Let's see, we're on 3 early access 12 5.7. So we're pretty much up to date on everything. We need to do another video on YouTube, a flying video, but this one was just a maintenance video. Our next maintenance video will probably be on the throttle quadrant and a couple other ones I need to edit. I'm not really good at editing these things. So I want to thank you all for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed me fixing something that I probably caused, but you got to look down inside the sim and find out how I do a little bit of my troubleshooting. So I will talk to you later, and look for me on my live streams. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.